All right, what is up, YouTube? It is the Catman here, and today is a great day because I have finally gotten my Call of Duty data back from Activision. And so I'm going to make a video on my skill data, what it looks like, how it's progressed over time, and how that correlates to the game statistics that are shown on my count. So basically how I'm going to run this video is we're going to go prestige by prestige. As you can see here, I'm going to put this in after editing. This is my overall skill data, right? So I kind of started, and I'm just going to do this off the top of my head. We're going to just do it in one recording, so it's not going to be edited in any way. But basically, I started around 100 skill rating when I first played the game. From what I've heard, when Activision starts you into Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, whatever that may be, they take in consideration your prior game history from other games, and they put you into a certain bracket, and then you start either progressing or going down for how you play that specific game. So I started at around 100, and as you can see here in this overall skill data, I climbed probably to around the 400 or mid 300 to upwards up to 400 was at my highest rank. And then as you can see here, I actually did a pretty sharp decline mixed in with a lot of inconsistencies, and a very sharp decline down to, I think my actual skill data or skill rank at one point was below negative 400, all the way down into like close to negative 500. And then I started to rank back up to around, let's see, around 200 again, and then another decline. So I have taken a bit of time to think about this data, analyze the data, go prestige by prestige, and that's how I want to run this video. I think it's going to make the most sense because I do think there's a lot of explanation behind why there has been so much fluctuation in my accounts and my skill rating over time. So I think what is going to make the most sense is just to go from the beginning. I will kind of just break everything out by prestige and explain why I think my skill data went to 400 and how it actually dropped all the way to negative 500, which is kind of crazy. I mean, the fluctuation in itself on face value is pretty shocking. So prestige number 0. I've also am going to outline something that I don't think a lot of other people are talking about in the community right now, and that is the lifetime kill death ratio and how that actually equates to what's being shown in your Call of Duty combat record. Because like many things in Call of Duty, the elimination to death ratio is actually very deceptive to what your actual KD is. So when I'm going and I'm seeing a lot of comments, I'm seeing a lot of people saying, hey, I have a 2 KD, I have a 3 KD, so you actually don't really have a 2 or 3 KD. It's probably a lot closer to somewhere in the ones. But what I think, and I hypothesize, is Call of Duty is showing us elimination to death ratio because they want us to feel better about how we are progressing through the game, because there is such a strong engagement-based optimization system in the game. They want us to feel like we're better than we actually are. So as you can see here, we'll go back to prestige number 1. And how I'm gonna do this is, like, I'm gonna show it on the show it on my account, and then also show what I've uncovered through the actual analysis of my data in Excel. I've essentially exported and made some graphs. So it looks like I can't even see my 0th prestige data in the combat record, which I think is pretty interesting. So it does start with prestige 1, but here's my prestige 0 because it's not going to show on the combat record. We'll just cover that first. So my skill data from my 0th prestige, I started, like I mentioned, around that 100 rank, and I climbed up to, I believe, just over 350 or around 350. Kind of that was the average towards the end. But I think people should pay attention to is my first and 0th prestige, my elimination to death ratio was around a 1.74. I think, give or take. It was probably a little bit lower when I first started. But as you can see here, my actual lifetime KD was around a 1.2. So that is a pretty significant change. And I think the misconception people are having is your elimination death ratio actually counts assists too. So it's assists and kills over death. That's the first thing to mention, to notice. So we'll move on to prestige number 1, because this is when things start to get a little bit more consistent. As you can see, when I first started playing the game, I was using the AS Val, the AK-47 or AK-74, the Ames 85. So I was using guns that were good. I wasn't really going for any kind of special weapon camo grinds or anything like that. I was using the guns that I felt were the best guns in the game. Just sweating normally, as you would if you purchase Call of Duty and you want to be a good player, right? So prestige number 1, prestige number 1, we'll move on to that now. I was around a 350. That was kind of like the average. I was give or taking around that range, maybe a little bit lower, maybe 325. And you can see in prestige number 1, my KD actually starts to climb. My actual KD starts to climb. So prestige number 0, I was around a 1.2, and now I'm starting to climb upwards to like a 1.28. So definitely starting to improve. The skill rating is going up. Everything's making sense up to this point, except for the elimination to death and kill death ratio. It's kind of weird. But as you can see, I'm using pretty standard guns. AS Val, AK-74, Ames, right? So let's move on to prestige number 2. Now, this is when things start to get a little bit weird, but not necessarily too weird, or where I would start to kind of be a little bit more conspiracy minded. So in prestige number 2, I had a 1.88 KD, and my skill rating was at a 350, and it started to dip down a little bit, and I started to average out around a little bit above 250 to 300. One thing that's really interesting, though, is my KD was actually starting to climb. So I started out around 1.29, 1.3, and it's starting to improve up to a 1.33. I'm not really exactly sure why my skill rating was staying so consistent as my skill rating was, or as my skill rating was staying consistent as my KD was going up, but it could be for a number of factors. As you can see here, I was using the Goblin, so I think this is when I started really started to camo grind a little bit more. So you can see here the let's see, we'll go all the way over to prestige 2. I was using the Goblin pretty consistently, and some other weapons. So I think I was starting to use other weapons, started to branch out and camo grind. So maybe I wasn't moving as much, especially if you're using a gun like the Goblin. I'm not moving as much, and I'm sure that's factored into the skill rating as well. So that's probably why you started to see a little bit of a decrease or kind of consistency around a certain skill rating, is because I wasn't moving as much as I normally would, because I'm using a gun that's less movement based. So you can't really run and gun with a Goblin. Another thing I was thinking about is I was probably playing less objectively at this point, so going for less captures, less defense. I was paying less attention to the actual game mode itself because I was more focused on the camo grind. So that leads us to prestige number 3. Now, this is where the skill data actually starts to improve a little bit, because as you can see here, I think I was pretty much close to or almost done with my camo grind on a lot of the assault rifles, so I was starting to use the submachine guns more, so starting to move more. It makes sense. My skill rating is going up. This is where I actually peaked out at 400 on my skill rating, and you can see my KD here, or my elimination death ratio, actually is lower, but my skill rating is going up. And there was quite a bit of fluctuation with my actual KD. As you can see here, it kind of dropped, went back up, dropped again. So I think a lot of this is attributed to the different types of weapons I was using, the different play styles I was using, but overall, I was using more submachine guns, and so I was probably moving more. Kind of makes sense, right? Okay, so prestige number 4 is when I start basically using submachine guns exclusively. Now, as you can see here, my skill rating is dropping very, very rapidly. So I start at like 350 and I go all the way down to 150. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit weird because my KD is actually going up. And I can tell you exactly why I think this is happening. So, around prestige number 4 or 5, I think it was prestige number 4, towards the end of prestige number 4, because you start to see this rise in KD and lower in skill. This is when I discovered 2-boxing. So I started to use 2-boxing because I was getting to a point where, as you can see in prestige number 3, my KD was going down relative to, like, it was in prestige number 2, it was at 1.8, or my elimination to death ratio was 1.88, went down to 1.69. I was starting to get into the sweatier brackets of skill-based matchmaking. I was at a 400 skill rating. So the people I was playing against were also at 400 skill rating, and it was starting to get not incredibly fun. I did have another Xbox laying around. My girlfriend had an account, so what did I do? I started 2-boxing, as a lot of other people were at that time. I take no shame in it. I don't see a problem with skill or with 2-boxing. I've been transparent about this on my channel before. I mentioned it in, I think, the original skill-based damage video that I put out. But yes, I was 2-boxing at Prestige 4. So my KD goes up. My elimination to death ratio goes up. Everything's going up except for my skill. Kind of makes sense, but also doesn't, because I think what is becoming very apparent about this this system and the data that's coming out is if you start to 2-box, your skill rating is going to go down because every elimination or kill that you get is relative to the skill of the other player. So it's kind of like this hidden elo rating that you have within the game that isn't displayed on your profile. So when I was at Prestige 3, actually, it was funny because my KD was going down, but I didn't know that my skill rating was going up. So I just thought, I am either A, getting worse at this game, or I'm getting into these sweatiest types of lobbies because my skill rating is too high. So instead of reverse boosting or maybe camo grinding for other things, I still wanted to sweat and I still wanted to have fun with the game, so I started 2-boxing. So prestige number 4 is when you start to see this weird inconsistency in the skill rating going down and the KD going up. So my lifetime KD is now above a 1.38. It's kind of close to 1.4. We're getting to that point. So what happens in prestige number 5? Well, as you can imagine, I continue 2-boxing. So my KD is actually now going from a 1.4 upwards to a 1.48. My elimination death ratio is a 2.38. So that in itself is kind of crazy because we're talking about like one value point that is higher on the elim to death ratio than is my actual KD. So this is what I think a lot of people don't understand about this system in Call of Duty is they want you to actually think that you're better than you are. And the reason for that is because the skill-based matchmaking and the engagement-based matchmaking is so thick in this game. So if you're sitting there and you're playing the game and you look at your account and you're like, oh, I'm a 1.2 elimination per death player. I feel pretty good about that. That's a positive ratio. But in reality, you are actually a lot lower than that. Your actual KD is actually negative, which is crazy to think about. So it's, in my mind, it's a little bit deceptive, to be completely honest. I don't remember when exactly they started to use the elim to death ratio in Call of Duty. From what I remember, in at least the old CODs, it was always kill to death ratio. So I think part of the reason is they implemented the skill-based matchmaking, engagement-based matchmaking into the game. They wanted people to stick around and still feel good about their KD because that's something that a lot of people in the Call of Duty community care about. And so they changed it. They added in the assists to make the KD look better, to keep you more engaged with the game. And I mean, when you look at your KD and it's a 0.8 or something, you're not going to have like an incentive to keep playing. That's not like a positive statistic to have on your account. You know, if you see that and maybe you actually are getting better, maybe you're getting into better brackets of games and things are getting a little bit harder, but your KD is still like a 0.8, 0.9, you're going to give up But if you see the elimination to death ratio go from like maybe a 1.2 to 1.3, even though your actual KD is like a zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.7, whatever it may be, you're going to feel better about playing the game for longer. So that's my theory behind it. And as you can see here, obviously I'm 2-boxing. I have 2.38 KD. My highest elim is a 113. My highest streak is a 33. So I was having a lot of fun during this period of the game. My skill rating obviously is going down. To be fair, at this time, no one knew about the skill rating, the hidden skill rating in the game. So it's not something I was, worried about or concerned about. I just wanted to have fun playing the game. So let's move on to Prestige number 6. I'm continuing. This is when I start to continue to camo grind. As you can see here, I'm starting to use guns like the XMG, the Compact. So this is, and I'm not exactly sure if this is when 2-boxing was patched or if I just stopped 2-boxing as much, because when I was 2-boxing, I knew that it was going to affect something with engagement-based and skill-based matchmaking, so I didn't want to do it every single game. Also, I was like, I don't know if my account's going to get banned, if this is considered cheating or whatever it may be. Obviously, I'm exposing myself here, so I don't really care at this point if my account gets banned. And to be honest, being so transparent about this now, I mean, there's a good chance that it does, especially if Activision has seen my videos, which I hypothesize that they probably have, considering I did have a TikTok that went pretty viral, and it was spread around the community. So we'll see what happens, but thankfully they sent me my data, which is, I mean, it took quite a while to get it, but they did send it to me, so props to them for that. But yeah, I mean, so, I don't really know how to explain this Prestige. I think a lot of it, obviously my KD is kind of going down. It's downward trending now. The elimination to death ratio for this Prestige in particular wasn't the greatest. It was like a 1.5. So I don't think I was 2-boxing as much, or it may have actually gotten patched around this time. Not 100% sure. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But I wish I had better memory, to be honest, but... So anyways, it looks like, okay, so Prestige 7, maybe it was just the guns I was using at this point, because Prestige 7, I do have a 2.23 KD. As you can see here, I'm using a lot of the LMGs, so this is when I'm more or less camo grinding. Skill rating is still in that like 100 to 200 range, so I think I was still 2-boxing quite a bit during this period. I was camo grinding, so... Oh, and then you can also see my my KD ratio is kind of going down. But in the KD ratio, this is something I want to touch on too, is there's a lot of like jumps. You can see these jumps, so like 1.2 to 1.4, 1.2 to 1.4. So what I think this was attributed to was when ranked play came out. So for some reason, it tracks the data in Call of Duty. Right now, when you get your data request, it's going to track your KD for ranked differently than it will the KD for unranked or multiplayer. So that's why you see these massive jumps up and down. It's like not just a straight line as it was in other Prestiges. So that's probably the reason why. And you can see here my KD is, or my skill rating is kind of fluctuating between 100 to 200, give or take. I didn't play rank play that much just because of all of the craziness that was going on with, hackers, cheaters, and I just, it wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't enjoy it. I did run into a lot of issues playing rank play too, like people disconnecting the game, so it wouldn't count as a loss. There was a lot of people that I was playing against that had very questionable aim, lower level accounts that were probably maybe gotten banned and gotten back into ranked and cheating. So it was frustrating enough for me not to want to play that much, but you will see in the actual lifetime. Oh my goodness, my cat just ran across my... hopefully we're still recording. Okay, we're still recording. But yeah, you'll see these jumps up and down. And that's because of ranked. So, Prestige number 7, this is when I'm starting to get a little bit deeper into the camo grind for Dark Matter, so I'm starting to use the LMGs. And now we're going to move into Prestige number 8, because I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I think this is when they patched 2-boxing. Because as you can see here, my skill rating went from like around 50 up to 250, and then I started to drop back down because I want to say I was using some like marksman rifles. Yeah, it looks like I was using a lot of marksman rifles, a lot of shotguns, so my skill rating was going up. And then I want to say I was started to use snipers in Prestige number 8, so I mean the skill rating is just going to drop down. Lifetime KD was pretty consistent. You see a little drop here because I was playing some ranked play, but around a 1.4 for the lifetime KD. It wasn't really changing too much, and towards the end it was actually improving a little bit. So let's see here. Prestige number 9. Now this is where it gets just crazy because I don't know exactly what was going on in Prestige number 9 because I think I was basically only using pistols on Stakeout, and you can actually see I was doing pretty well, and my KD was going up during this time, but my skill rating plummeted to the absolute bottom, and I don't know if I can actually go through here. Let's see what weapons I was using. Yeah, so it was basically all snipers and pistols for the most part. So I think a lot of it was using the snipers was causing me to do worse. But maybe that was towards the beginning of the Prestige, but as you can see towards the end of Prestige, it started going back up. But it was super inconsistent. I was like below 0. I think this is actually when I started to back out of a lot of lobbies too, and so I think that does play a factor too. I was starting to get super frustrated with the game. So the skill rating from backing out, using snipers, and just grinding Stakeout for the pistols, and just keep going until I find a good... You know what? I think I was using a lot of the melee weapons in this Prestige too. No, I wasn't. Not yet. Prestige 10 was a lot of the melee weapons. But yeah, so this is pretty much camo grinding and backing out of games. And so this is what happens if you camo grind and back out of games. You're going to be put into lower level skill brackets. And so you can see this huge inconsistency because basically what I was doing was reverse boosting. Especially when I was using the sniper rifle. So what I would do is I would use the sniper rifle until I just couldn't take it anymore, and then I would start using the pistol. I would do really well, shoot back up my skill rating, get into sweatier lobbies, hate that, go back down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So that's basically what was happening at this time. Now, Prestige number 10. At some point, 2Boxing does get patched. I don't remember exactly when, but I think it was around Prestige 10, and this is basically when I was like kind of over the game, to be honest. I had gotten to the point where I just didn't really want to play anymore, but I did want to get Dark Matter. So as you can see here, the Siren 9 comes out. I'm basically just using the pistols and the the sniper rifles, and I don't know exactly when I used all the melees because it's not showing that I have any kills. Very odd. Okay, I used the knife a lot in Prestige number 9, 159 kills with that. Where's the baseball bat? Because at one point, yeah, baseball bat. I don't know when. Oh, Prestige number 9. Okay. Yeah, so Prestige number 9, I used the knife a lot. Prestige number 10, also used the knife a lot, and the power drill. So I had 264 kills in Prestige 10. So yeah, I was having a lot of very inconsistent games because of using the baseball bat. If anyone's tried using the baseball bat, you get it. It is very, very, very difficult to level up. I don't know if they've made any changes, to be honest, but as you can see in the lifetime KD, it went from like a 1.5 and it started to basically tank. And towards the end of this Prestige 10, I think my skill rating started to go up a little bit because at some point I got Darkspine and I started to use other guns that weren't sniper rifles and other things I was just trying to level up. So I started to use other guns, started to get some Darkspine, and then Prestige Master. So this is basically when I stopped playing the game. Yeah, I mean, I never really got up to above 100 skill rating because basically when I unlocked Dark Matter, I just stopped playing the game because I just completely lost all interest. And as you can see here, I did actually try some ranked games in Prestige Master. That's when the KD dips down. I couldn't do it. So basically this one I've lost interest for the game, and you can kind of see that reflected of the win to loss ratio. I mean, especially for Prestige 10 and Prestige Master, if I was and you can see this through all of my prestiges, mostly have a positive win to loss ratio because I would try to actually win games. But at Prestige 10 and Prestige Master, if I got into a lobby that was sweaty, I would just back out. I would just back out. I wasn't doing it. I just couldn't do it anymore. So, yeah, I mean that's basically it. And I mean since I hit Prestige Master, I really haven't played the game anymore. So if we go back to the original data and we can kind of look at my lifetime now and compare that to the data that I showed at the beginning, lots of ups and downs, right? So, and all of it kind of makes sense. And this is what, and I think this is a good account to take a look at, because if you're playing regularly, you're not backing out of games, you're using good ARs, and you're trying very consistently, your skill rating will go up to a point where it's like in the 400s for probably a good player. I consider myself a good player, even though I've done a lot of two boxing and stuff. But I mean, in the 400 skill level bracket, you're going to not have as much fun in the game. And it's going to be very, very difficult to get all of the challenges done with the weapons that you want to do. And so that's when I started to do two boxing. You can see it go down. And then from that point, basically the rest of my Call of Duty career for this game was camo grinding. And then I got all the camos, and then I was done playing. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I make sense of the data. And I would encourage anyone else, if you want to have access to the data that I have here, I can send it to you if you want to do a deeper analysis. I hope some people in the community, like, Exclusive Ace or Blame Truth, get to see this video, because I think this does show just how, like, weird and manipulative this actual system is. And, at this point, I don't really know what to make of it. I think that Call of Duty is, I mean, I think they're, I don't know. I don't think there's a way for them to recover at this point. They have just made every bad decision that they could have with this release, and they are incredibly tone deaf. And yeah, I mean, it is pissed enough people off that have been long time standing fans of the franchise that, I don't know. I mean, there's so many other games out there right now that are more fun to play. I have been having a blast on Marvel Rivals. There are so many problems with Call of Duty, and for a publisher like Activision Blizzard to continually make these mistakes year after year after year, I mean, people are going to have enough of it. And it's like every dynasty at a certain point falls, and I think that they have taken their community for granted, to be honest. I think they have made so many changes that they think were good changes. They think are good changes for their series long term, but it's they just don't take the feedback from their community, and they've catered to lower skill people, lower skill players, and it's pissed off a lot of people that progress through the game and they do well in the game. And it's basically just, I don't know. I think it's just really geared towards casual players at this point, and that's just not really what people want. It's weird to have a game where you feel like you're being punished for getting better at the game. And you can see this here in the skill data that I have. I mean, when I hit 400 on my skill rating, the game felt unplayable. So I started two boxing. Then they patched two boxing, and then I was like, trying to camo grind without two boxing was incredibly frustrating. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The game, I think, is dead, and I think that's reflective on Steam charts. I think that's reflective on player counts across consoles. I don't know what they can do at this point to recover. And I think this is probably going to be the last video I make on Call of Duty. It's just, even like covering Call of Duty, it's like not fun for me anymore. I think it was actually pretty fun at the beginning, especially when I was talking a lot about the skill-based damage stuff and some of the patterns and things. But there's just like so much. It's like so obvious how bad this game is at this point that I feel like I don't need to convince anyone anymore. So I'd rather go and play games that I actually enjoy, that I can make more positive content about, because just doing this whole Call of Duty thing and dumping on Call of Duty over and over again is just not, it's not super fun. It's not really, I don't think it's going to keep me motivated long term to continue posting. So yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And hopefully you agree with my analysis. I don't know. Hopefully this helps make some sense of what's going on, especially with the weirdness in this game right now. So if you enjoyed this video, rate it a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. And see you guys next time. Peace.